Welcome to the Nerd Journey Podcast. Our goal is to help you, the technology professional, accelerate your career progression, increase your job satisfaction, and be more effective in your existing role.
We want to bring listeners like you the career advice we wish we'd been given earlier in our careers.
I'm John White, at VJourneyman on Twitter, sharing co-host duties with Nick Cordy at NetworkNerd_.
We're two former IT operations guys who have moved on to pre-sales roles with technology vendors. We have our opinions, but we also like to highlight the journeys of others and see what we can learn from them.
We'd also like to ask for your feedback to make this a conversation, not a one-way broadcast. Email us at nerdjourneypodcast@gmail.com or DM us at nerdjourney on Twitter. So come join us on our nerd journey.
Let's take a trip. Episode 337. What makes for a good technology partnership between two different companies? Our guest this week might tell you it's not that different than what makes for a good mentor and mentee relationship. Alignment on outcomes. Daniel Paluszek is a Principal Partner Technology Strategist at ServiceNow, and we're going to share part one of his story with you this week. We'll start by talking about what technology partnerships really are and what a go-to-market strategy really means. Then we'll rewind the clock back to Daniel's early career working the help desk, taking an internship in government contracting, and how he got into consulting. Along the way, we'll talk about things like mentoring and developing people and why that's so important, as well as some tips on public speaking and the importance of communication. Let's get you to part one of our discussion with Daniel Paluszek.
Daniel Paluszek, welcome to the Nerd Journey.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on.
And now you got to tell me if I pronounced that correctly or not, because I feel like you just told me and I've already forgotten if that's the right way.
You were close enough. Paluszek. Yep.
Paluszek.
You got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do today?
I work at ServiceNow. I'm a Principal Partner Technology Strategist. I'm part of the solution consulting team at ServiceNow, supporting global strategic partners in the ecosystem. And so I work on our overall strategy, innovation, and guidance on how we go to market with a specific global partner. I have a specific partner that I cover. But my peers and I, we focus on essentially laying out how ServiceNow and the partner goes to market on solving customer business problems. How do we take our technology and our solutions along with the partner on building an overarching solution that drives business transformation? So I look at it on a daily basis. What is the industry moving towards? What is ServiceNow developing as next generation technology that we can apply to industry challenges? What are customers experiencing? What is their pain? And then how do we build a joint strategy and solution to solve those? The thing that I think about all the time is, how do I solve problems? A lot of times it's not technical. It's working through an organizational governance. And many people know ServiceNow from that perceived notion that we're an IT ticketing tool. And many of us got our start in IT operations management or service management. ServiceNow today is a work platform. Wouldn't say it's a well-hidden secret. I think it's being exposed and cascading in the market. But a lot of the things I'm working on are beyond IT.
Just give us a quick blurb on what it means to be a partner to a technology company like a ServiceNow. Let's just give listeners a quick bite on that.
A partner for me is somebody that can look at a customer in a lens from an agnostic point of view. They usually will work and have a joint strategy with many different manufacturers or ISVs, and they're able to take a agnostic approach on solving specific business or technical challenges, and then provide the best of breed technology and solution that answers those customer requirements. So the best partners in my mind They may have experience with ServiceNow or any other technology partner, but I think they have to look at it from what are we trying to solve for this customer? And it may be different on a per customer basis and a daily basis, but the best partners are able to say, remove the technology landscape, look at the core problems, and then what are we trying to solve? And then we can start building a plan and a solution together, and then bring in our toolbox or our solution partners that can aid and accelerate answering these requirements.
I don't think that I've ever heard the partner ecosystem described so thoroughly. The first word that I expected you to say, or the first phrase I expected, was to have the word reseller in it somewhere. And I'm not sure that you said it once. And that is fascinating.
That was intentional. Resell for me is a motion, a sales motion.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the end all or be all. There's some great resell partners, but in my mind, in my vision, the strongest partners are the ones that encompass the entire life cycle. Of course, there's sales models that drive that behavior, but the partners that are achieving and acquiring the new business look at it from a holistic approach, not just selling a product. It comes down to, if we're able to solve this problem, what's next? How can we actually help on this journey? And I'm sure many of you might have heard of, seen Bill McDermott's speeches. It's about this digital transformation and how do we empower businesses to increase their revenue, increase their productivity while reducing operational expense. And that's applied through technology and solutions, but it has to come back to the core issues. What are we solving for?
I think it could also mean like they can do professional services or some kind of consulting around the technology company they are a partner to. But yeah, really focusing on the business problems, taking the holistic approach. I really like the way you described that.
It seems to me, maybe you can confirm this, that even the consulting services are really in service of that outcome that the partner is trying to help the end customer get to. Maybe it's a piece from this vendor over here, a piece from this vendor over here, some services to help get it all operational. But the goal isn't to sell services, and it isn't to sell pieces and parts. It's to, I guess it's embedded in the name, right? Partner with the customer and the vendors to present that best-of-breed solution.
Completely agree with that. Spot on. And then what are those resulting outcomes? What are we driving forward towards? And so, again, reiterating, I think the best-of-breed partners are able to put, the analogy I like to use is the pieces of the puzzle together. This is what we're accomplishing. Here's a clear path on how we can get there. And here are the expectations. And here's how we drive forward.
I think this type of conversation is always interesting. And I'm not even sure, Nick, that we've ever said this explicitly, hundreds of episodes in, but we always ask people about what it is that they do, because one of the goals of the podcast is to expose people who might be in IT operations and, they kind of maybe have the blinders on and don't know about all the different types of roles that are out there, either working for a vendor or a partner or integrator. So it's just really interesting to hear the perspective of the partner ecosystem and to hear about this role where at a major technology vendor, there is a role that is focused almost entirely on a large partner and helping that partnership, the go-to-market of that partnership. Maybe we can even define go-to-market, because I think we throw that around as an industry phrase, but a lot of times don't define it. What is your definition of go-to-market?
Go-to-market for me is, what is the execution path we're taking for this channel? And what I mean by channel is my role is purely focused on how my partner positions their solutions and their offerings to end customers. I, as ServiceNow, come in, work with them on that proposed solution and state to position it to that end customer. Most technology vendors, and I would say even most of the modernized technology platforms typically have two routes to market. One, they sell direct, or they sell through a partner. Some of them only have one. I know of a few tech vendors that only work through partners. But I think it really comes down to the DNA of what the solution is. And that kind of dictates what that route to market or go to market strategy is and what we're trying to achieve. For ServiceNow and most of my history, I've been positioning in large enterprises. I've done federal government, state and local government, and then some large commercial. And typically you have a direct motion where you have field teams that support customers, and that can coincide with partners that also help the field teams understand what those customer objectives are and work hand in hand with those. I think that, the big thing that I've learned in my experience is it varies based off of the solution. It varies based on the industry too, and what that industry is receptive to on how to approach that go-to-market function.
I suppose it would make sense that a technology vendor might have like an overall go-to-market plan for a specific delivery channel, say, specific types of partners. But then even in categories of partners, you might have like the largest global system integrators or global level partners. And from one to the other, they have different philosophies, different industries, different ways that they build relationships with their customers, and therefore have a slightly different go-to-market plan that's kind of tailored to that partner. Am I on track there?
I would say you are very on track, especially in the global system integrator business. They typically will have dedicated teams to serve an industry that know the nuances of that industry. What are the solutions and the common themes they see? So for example, retail or consumer goods. What are the trends around managing a retail store and the operations? How do you actually manage your point of sale systems associated to that? What is the operational visibility to revenue that is coming in at that store? How do you manage employee experience? I'm not trying to make a broad statement here or generalization, but there's a higher attrition rate for retail employees compared to, let's say, a different industry. So how do you onboard new employees in a retail store location, provide that productivity, that requirements they need, and provide them the insight and guidance on running that local retail location? Coming back to your statement here, in my mind, the partners that have expertise, that have come from this domain or this industry, are able to bring value and a perspective that says, I've done this before, and here's how we've done it. And I see these common themes across the industry. Here's how we're solving it.
And I would imagine that as some company is constructing their go-to-market, they have to do the analysis of how do we find partners with the right type of experience that can be taken with us and our technology to the customer for this value delivery. So it's like you have these value delivery streams that maybe company leaders have defined, and then I guess you would just determine if partners fit within that, expand it, something like that.
That's correct. Yes. And at ServiceNow, I'll give you my current perspective. We have over 2,000 partners globally. And on our partner page, we also list out every partner, their capabilities, their certifications, industries they focus in, or regions. And so anybody can go to ServiceNow.com, go to the partner finder, and filter it based off of what is the solution or what is the outcome I'm trying to achieve? What is the region? And they can actually look and see who are the partners that focus in those areas or have specialization. And they can also look and correlate that to success stories. What did this partner do with this customer? And what was the problem statement? What was the solution? And what was the outcome? So if we look at those three key categories, those are the things that I look at that says, this is a success story that we can build upon. The partner has direct experience with, and they're able to actually drive that outcome and accelerate it, but also de-risk it. as a technologist and as a solution architect, probably preaching the choir here is, how do we mitigate risk? We don't want to introduce more risk. When we go into a customer or we go into any situation where we're trying to solve a problem, we have to show and articulate a compelling reason for them to say, yes, I want to invest in that. It's not just a financial impact. There are people's jobs on the line in some cases, right? For success and failure. So I take that to heart to say, we need to have the right solution. We need to do our due diligence. And we have to be thorough on how we approach it from a solution perspective, because it doesn't just impact the business, it impacts people.
Yeah, definitely. I think all three of us are on board with that. The right solution for the right people at the right time. Otherwise, it usually doesn't make any sense. But can we roll the clock back a little bit? Can we get to maybe all the way back to your origin story? What got you into technology first? Even, tracking to your first job.
I started in a household of technology. I grew up in it. My dad was a programmer at Bell Labs, started off working in Unix. And as a kid, he worked at Sun Microsystems. My first foray on the internet was on a Solaris machine. And so experiencing the internet in the mid-90s, it was kind of this eye-opening event that told me that I was just fascinated and enamored by technology. I started off as just a kid tinkering and got my first computer. And the reason I wanted to get a computer is because I was obsessed with video games and getting the highest performance I could possibly can get. So I started educating myself on overclocking and tinkering and getting the best performance possible out of my rig. And that was with a group of friends. I would say it blossomed from there. And my first job was in high school, just doing computer repair, PC repairs, and just enjoying it. I don't know how to solve this, but I'm going to go figure it out. And trying to apply a decision logic that says, how do I eliminate variables to get down to process of elimination and solve this issue? So I just took a great interest into technology and computers. At an early age, I knew that this was the field I wanted to get into. And I got into University of Central Florida in Orlando, and I signed up for the computer science program. And so I started going through that. And I realized very quickly that programming was not something that I was all interested in. Understanding the theoretical programming and the concepts, it just didn't really strike the same drive that I had with solving hardware and software issues. So I did CS for about a year, and then I switched to IT. And I still remember this clear as day. I was working at the help desk at UCF, and they had this program where you could post a resume. It was like an internship portal where companies could seek interns for their businesses that were in the computer science program and IT program. So I got a call on my day off, and it was from this company, and they were looking for an intern for a defense contractor. And I didn't know the name. It was a small company called ENSCO, ENSCO. I got a call, and they're like, hey, we're looking for somebody that has interest in systems engineering, systems administration, help us run our corporate environment, start off in the help desk. Everybody that had started off in the help desk knows it's a slog. They initially said help desk, and I said, I'm not interested. That was my first reaction. And they're like, well, let me tell you. They're like, we're a defense contractor. We can probably even roll you into some projects with the US government. And that kind of piqued my interest. I was like, wow, I'm curious. And so I went out to meet them, and I got an offer. It was an internship initially that turned into a part-time position while I was going to school and finishing out my IT degree. They rolled me on a defense contract for the Air Force after about a year or two. Funny story, it was around Solaris administration for the US Air Force.
Nice.
Full circle.
That experience that I got as a kid came full circle. And I was doing Solaris administration after my first stint in internal IT And that's also where I got my start with VMware technology. At that time, we started exploring GSX, and virtualization was just coming on the scene. This was mid 2000s, early 2000s. My first foray in virtualization, I was like, wow, this is incredible. So anyway, I started doing Solaris administration for a federal contract with the Air Force, and that was in a SCIF environment. So it was a secured environment. And so that was fascinating, especially for somebody that was, snot-nosed college kid that had no frame of reference or experience. And I'm just super grateful for that opportunity, because I don't think I would be in this position if I said, you know what, I'm not interested. I don't want to talk about this. I think that's what really kind of accelerated my exposure to a different environment and different landscape. That was really my big kind of initial opportunity into systems engineering, administration, and really understanding a different purview, especially in federal government contracting.
So I want to go back to when they first talked to you about help desk and then mentioned systems administration and systems engineering. Did you understand the differences between all of those roles and what the function of them was? Or was that what they were really educating you on when you went and talked to them?
I did not understand it. I'll just, I knew administration as I have a platform that I need to apply day two operational maintenance, patch management. And I was doing a little bit of that in the help desk. That expanded my experience into designing new data centers. One of the projects when I came on board was smart power infrastructure. They gave me the responsibility of designing the power infrastructure for the new data center. Again, I was 19 years old. They gave an intern the responsibility to figure this out. Thankfully, it turned out pretty good. It was anxiety inducing, I'll just say that. And I had to learn a lot. And that was also my first foray into dealing with vendors, because I had to go prove out different vendors on their power solutions, their intelligent software management for the power infrastructure. I also had to teach myself and educate myself on different NEMA plugs, what a 30 amp and 20 amp circuit was, how to actually design the 42 rack unit. It was an awesome learning experience, right? Because all of that in my mind built onto my next iterative roles, because I had the awareness of how power and cooling works, how to design a 42 unit rack, how to actually bring in infrastructure, what your load capacity is. Those are things that you had to go through. And it wasn't something I learned at school. That was trial by fire by experience. You were dropped into this situation. You either had to sink or swim, and you had to figure it out. And of course, I had my management to help me with that and bounce off ideas, and they vetted everything I approached them with. But it was my first foray into designing a solution, and that solution engineering and systems engineering on what is that conceptual, logical, and physical view. And I didn't have the awareness at the time of what the methodology was. I just had to figure out how to build this and get some guidance from mentors along the way.
If someone listening really likes the idea of being a systems designer, do they have to be a systems administrator? I mean, how much systems administration experience would they need, if any?
It's hard for me to say you have to choose this path to be successful. I think that as an administrator, you're exposed to how the system performs and how it actually behaves. And by that real world experience, you're able to learn and understand what are the constraints and the challenges on dealing with the design. So as a designer, if I don't have the experience of how to manage this from a day two perspective, I think you missed part of the equation. I'm not saying that a good designer, they have to have that experience, but I think it adds up to this formula that makes certain individuals unique because they have had that real world experience, not the conceptual view of it. They lived it. They breathed it. When something broke and it's all hands on deck, they knew how to actually power through and figure that out. And as humans, we typically learn from our bad times, right? The things when stuff hits the fan. And when there's a large problem and it's all hands on deck, those are the things that you really take away and say, okay, I've learned a lot from this. We figured out a problem. What can I take away from this that will make me a better technologist or a better professional at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you mentioned was how surprised you were that they allowed you to take this responsibility, right? Looking back, did you learn any lessons about teaching people and overseeing that kind of development for someone else?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm a firm believer in mentoring because I was given the opportunity to broaden my horizons at a young age. And I think guiding others on their career journey and development is key for our industry because it gives everybody a opportunity to say, how do I get exposed to what's next on that? And I had somebody for some reason randomly pick me out of thin air when I worked at a help desk to provide me an opportunity. And I'm a firm believer in passing it forward. And so part of my professional development, just I would even say personal development, is how do I mentor the next generation? How do I help others on what they aspire to be and become better people and better professionals in this industry?
How do you spot the individual that you're in contact with, working with, who might need a little mentoring? Because I'm sure the radar has to have gone off many different times.
I look at people that have just this innate drive and desire to learn and challenge themselves. At my previous company at VMware, I had a product manager call me out of the blue from our business unit that said, hey, I want to understand how you all, work on a daily basis from a solution architecture and a sales engineering perspective. I immediately knew, getting a cold call, I knew of this individual, and he wanted to expand his horizons and understand what would make him a better product manager in his role. Understand it from a customer lens, what we go through on a daily basis. So this is somebody that I've had a relationship for years now and talked to him. He's doing very well now. He got his MBA, and I'm very proud of, what he's accomplished. There's just this innate desire where people will say, I want to do better. I want to challenge myself, and I might need some guidance and mentoring on how do I get there. And maybe those guardrails are key. When I look at individuals that have that potential, that high performance potential, and just have this innate drive that feeds their energy, pushes them forward to say, I want to do better day by day. I have to get to know them a little bit and understand what are their desires, what are they trying to pursue. I always challenge myself every day on what I do, even now. Everybody probably has their own little vices, but I'm my own worst critic. I challenge myself to articulate a solution better every time that I present it. It's this fundamental understanding of how do you become a better professional? I don't know how else to describe it. Hopefully that answers the question.
I think it does. So you described what you see in someone who needs the mentoring. So what would be your coaching for someone who is approaching someone else for mentorship? So if I said, hey, Daniel, I need you to mentor me, what other information would you actually need me to tell you for that to work successfully?
What are you trying to achieve? What are your short-term goals and long-term goals? What are you aspiring to? If you're a new sales engineer or solution consultant, are you trying to build a differentiated value in a specific industry or a specific product and become a subject matter expertise? Those are the kind of working questions I would have to operate and understand the context. Are you trying to get further exposure to how to present? I'm a firm believer that it's practice. I got asked a while ago, they're like, you just are able to dynamically think quick on your feet. How do you learn that? I'm like, trial by fire, practice, just at bats. I was the worst presenter. My internship, they made me present back when I worked for the defense contractor. I had to present that physical power infrastructure solution at like equivalent of a tech summit. I was awful, completely awful. I practiced for weeks. I could not present myself out of a paper bag. It was just terrible. And at the end, when I presented in front of a crowd of like 100 people, I was scared. I was nervous, stumbled over my words. But I realized very quickly, it just comes down to you have to put in the time, the effort, the discipline to put yourself in a better position. I also had this naive view that certifications and certain qualifications were this end all be all, right? You could qualify. You got your CCIE from Cisco, or you got your VCIX from VMware, or your CTA from ServiceNow. That's part of the equation. It's about how you communicate, how you work through a dialogue, and that comes with experience. That's priceless. You can't purchase that. Yeah, you can have classes that teach you to become more of an eloquent speaker and articulate a message on that. But the proof in the pudding, when you're in front of the customer, in front of the panel, in front of the event. And I always process, what did I do really well here? And what can I improve on? Or what do I need to work on next time? So I always have this post-processing operation for me that says, these are things I need to improve on, even to this day. So coming back to that, your question, Nick, I want to know, what is your desire? What are you trying to achieve? What is the outcome? And then also, why did you seek me out? How can I help you? What do you need help with? And where can I focus my energy on that?
Ooh, I like that question. Why did you pick me? That's a good one.
It is.
There's this interesting thing that you kind of pulled out there, which is sometimes people think that just expertise will allow them to eloquently communicate expertise. But there's really a difference between having this embedded knowledge and executing it, doing the design, doing knowledge work, independently. There's a difference between that and then teaching and presenting to a crowd about it, right? That's kind of its own skill, which is completely separate from the mastery of the skill that you're presenting on. And I think sometimes people forget that those are two different things. And it sounds like you had that situation where you thought the expertise was going to get you through the presentation, and then you found out that the presentation was its own thing. Public speaking is its own thing. Did you follow like a similar path of improving on that, just kind of completely separately from the technology?
I did. And what I realized very quickly is I really enjoyed speaking to others about technology and also framing it in the reference that they could understand. One of the things that I've learned very quickly is you need to know your audience. Who are you speaking to? Who are these individuals? The key distinction between how you present a solution at a C-level versus a solution architect is distinctly different. And you cannot use the same approach. You also need to frame it in a way that your audience understands it based off of the context of the solution or situation or why you're there. You could be a subject matter expert in this technology. You have to have a context of who you're speaking to, who you're trying to articulate a message to. And the other part of it is, why are they there? What are they trying to achieve and understand from this solution or what you're presenting? So you have to put it in their terms and meet them in the middle. In some cases, you can have a bi-directional dialogue. If it's an event, that's kind of hard, but you know exactly why you're there. At the end of the day, I came away from, my first time speaking like, man, I got a lot of work to do. I got to really work on this. But it was something that really interests me and I really enjoyed. I just got a lot of energy from it. And also seeing people understand a very complex solution and put it in terms that they can take away and help their business or their enterprise or show a new way of doing something, I think is a great outcome. And I really enjoy that approach of it. And even today, it's about providing a level of understanding the audience can just take away. What are the key points that I'm trying to drive towards that solve your issues and your business problems?
After that first presentation on the data center or rack design, did you get any pointed feedback that led you to the thought process and post-processing you spoke about when you do these presentations? Or was that something that just materialized on its own as you gained experience?
So the feedback I got was probably a couple pat on the backs and said, good job, but I could definitely see through. They were trying to be nice. What I recall was I left that saying, man, I just need to do better. But I did enjoy the challenge and the impact. And this was before I got into consulting and working for a partner. And this was years prior to that. But I saw a spark. This was something that I really enjoyed presenting and articulating a message. I just didn't know at that time where that was going to lead me to be honest with you. I was still focused on learning infrastructure, learning systems, soaking every experience I could get at such young age to just say, I need to have this broad view of the industry and the market and take all that information in, digest it, and learn from it. And when an opportunity came up for a project, I would be the first one to raise my hand and say, I want to be on that because I've never done it before. And it was an opportunity for me to then go learn that and then compound all my past knowledge. The words of wisdom I could give to anybody starting off their IT career or in this industry is, be the first one to raise your hand. You may not know how the heck to do it, but if you have the drive and desire, you'll figure it out. I figured it out, and I don't feel like I'm the smartest person to do it, but I feel like I have that innate desire and drive to figure it out, and I set my mind to it, and I don't stop.
Is that drive something that someone saw which led you into consulting, or something that you pushed into on your own?
After defense contracting, I worked for a service provider for a little bit, a cable provider actually in Orlando. The one thing that I would see is I would get on projects and I would go figure out a solution and engineer and deploy it. And then I would have to maintain it. And I kind of got bored a little bit on the maintenance and the day two operations because it was very repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd go and pick up projects or figure out new ideas. But I just felt like it was the same cycle over and over again. And there was some new technology and I was using at that time. We were virtualizing all of our workloads. And so VMware was really coming up the scene. This was at the time 3.0, ESXi 3.0. So able to consolidate workloads and really have a production grade infrastructure. So got to the point like this virtualization thing's going to take off. We can consolidate. We have so much just infrastructure we can sweat, get higher utilization, just the economics of that. I just saw that. I didn't understand that at that point, what the financial impact was, but I saw how well we were able to take racks of servers, all this discrete storage, and bring it down to a simplified architecture. I had the opportunity to join a small partner here in Tallahassee, and I was living in Orlando at the time. Happenstance, my wife was originally from here, and she wanted to move back to Tallahassee. We were living in Orlando at the time. This partner called Dyntech Services, and they had a job on a systems engineer for consulting, and they had a resell arm, but they had a big services, professional services arm. And I said, man, that's really interesting. And at the cable provider, I started seeing these partners come in and out and really help us with our technology. And I was like, it just seems so fun to me. I was like, that's really cool method where they can come into a customer and present a solution, work with us on deploying it, ensuring that it's working for us. And it really changes our paradigm. So I said, I'd love to do something like that. Needless to say, I got this opportunity here in Tallahassee at Dyntech Services. And that started my consulting career. No prior experience. I was just an engineer. I was an engineer at the time. Didn't have any pre-sales experience, but I worked with a sales rep who was an incredible mentor to me. Just a very thoughtful, probably one of the best salespeople I ever worked with that was able to kind of take me under his arm and just show me the ropes. He was a genuine, honest guy, was always true to his customers, had just long-standing relationships with people on solving problems. And we worked in state and local government. He had these relationships for years, if not decades. So these are people that came to him and say, I need to solve this issue. And how do we go about it? Because he treated companies and organizations and state and local departments with respect, with honesty, in an ethical way, and always made their lives better and their organizations better. So it was a great learning experience for me. Wow, this is incredible. I can learn and really experience the people side of it and how to have that interpersonal skills and work with dynamic situations, but also bring in technology. And it was like almost a switch turned on in my brain that said, this is incredible. This is what I want to do, because I felt every week it was something new. It was something dynamic. It was a new opportunity or a new customer or problem came up, and we had to go solve it. We had to go meet the stakeholders. We needed to go figure out this problem. And then we had to orchestrate and build a solution that was compelling enough for them to say, yeah, we're going to buy off on this and you're going to help us go deploy this. That was something that came to me and I said, this is exactly what I was looking for that I didn't have before.
Hopefully you saw the parallels between mentorship and technology partnership. If I'm looking for a mentor, I want someone who can help me with the outcomes I want, the things that I want to do, just like a technology company or a customer would seek a partner with the right level of expertise. It's good for both parties. It's good for the mentee because you're developing that person. It's good for the mentor because their experience is valuable to the mentee. Daniel also talked about spotting individuals who have high performance potential and a specific amount of drive, a willingness to go and take on new things to learn and to get the experience. Just like a company would look for other companies they can partner with in specific areas. Daniel spoke about mentorship as something we should all be doing, something we should be doing to develop other people, to make our industry better. I love the question about why me? Daniel likes to find out why people seek him out for mentorship. I hope you can answer that question if you are someone asking another person for mentorship. We should be ready for that one. And he actually mentioned guardrails are key when it comes to mentorship. That immediately reminded me of our episodes with Dale McKay in episode 288 and 289. That's a great set of episodes on mentorship if you want to dig deeper there. Daniel also pointed out how important communication is to our industry, how important it is to be able to effectively communicate with other people. In the case of presentations, having expertise is one thing, but communicating that expertise to different audiences is actually a challenge. You have to approach it in different ways. Many different guests we had on the show have stressed the importance of effective communication in everything we do. I thought I'd share a couple of articles that our former guest Neil Thompson from Teach the Geek, who you can listen to in episodes 193 and 194, shared about the importance of strong communicators. I'll put those in the show notes for your reading pleasure. They're really good. Highly recommend checking those out. And then if you are someone who's listening to this and you want to get better at presentations, I'll put the link to our presentations tag in the show notes because we have a lot of good episodes specific to presentations. There are good ones with Kellen Gorman, Duncan Epping, Al Rashid, and many more who talked about that topic of presenting and communicating effectively. Next week, we'll talk a little bit more about Daniel's foray into consulting and pre-sales.
Farewell, listeners. Tune in next time as the journey continues. I'm John White at BJourneyman, for Nick Cordy at NetworkNerd_, signing off.
Adios.